Hey gang, Carl White here, broadcasting actually in my think room here at the secret headquarters of the Mortgage Marketing Animals. And you're listening to Loan Officer Freedom, #1 podcast in the world today for loan officers, based upon the reviews and number of downloads. And we really appreciate you guys making it happen. I know how it happens is you forward these episodes to your friends that are also in the mortgage business, and that really helps out, and I really appreciate it. So, all right. So today, what I'm going to be talking about is kind of like what's holding you back. What's holding you back? What's holding you back from that epic success? And I've got a dear friend of mine. We're going to be doing a series, Mark Pfeiffer, out of the beautiful state of Texas, in the heart of it all, Dallas. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, my friend. How are you today?
It is just another beautiful day in paradise here, and life is good right now. So tell us, just real briefly, tell us about you a little bit, like banker, broker, how long you been doing this, and a little bit of hodgepodge before we go into our topic.
Yeah, you bet. I've got in the mortgage business in 2003. Spent first year and a half in wholesale. So coming up on the 20th year, give or take.
Wow,
And
time flies, doesn't it?
yeah, I don't know. I got mixed emotions on that. On one hand, it's neat. On the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. It's just a weird feeling at that point to think I've been doing this so long that I'm not good at anything else. So
Well,
been doing the
you,
retail
you,
since.
just real quick for a second. We some of us we had this meetings at my house with some of our Freedom Club members. We had groups of like 15, 20 come. Really good time. But one of the topics that came up is like, what a what an awesome career that we have landed ourselves in. That probably the average income, at least with this group, probably the average income is probably somewhere around 400,000 a year. Some of them, the highest one I think was like 2.4. I think the lowest was like 150 or something like, and that's just off the top of my head, but somewhere around like 400,000. And a couple of years ago it was probably closer to like 700, 800,000. Something like that. What else could we do that as an average income would be somewhere around 400,000 or whatever that number is, right?
But
It's a
I've thought about that extensively. We all have those bad days, right? Unfortunately, they're few and far between. Although last year maybe they were a little more frequent than other years. But the reality is, you think about it. I don't. So I'm a banker, right? I'm not a broker. I'm a banker. So if
yeah,
you're a broker or a business owner, I understand that. But to some degree, like where else can you make that kind of money and not have a ton of risk, right?
yeah,
So it's like think about this. Like I mean, my risk is $0. It's not negative, right? If I don't make any money, I don't make any money. But as a business owner, I respect that. And there are such things as negatives in this market. I get that. But the
yeah.
reality is we don't have to travel, right? I got friends that they work. I got attorney friends that work way harder in terms of like I'll be here in the office till 2 a.m. or whatever it is. So it's just we're super blessed to be in an industry. You can be as big as you want, run it the way you want. There's no one way to do this. So
Yeah.
it truly is a remarkable industry. So on those bad days, you start thinking, well, air quotes, I'm not good at anything else. Well, the reality is there's nothing else like it. It's just an amazing industry that I mean, I'm just blessed to be here and glad I found it.
I've always thought, we can make NFL football player money without having a 350-pound linebacker trying to break our knees.
And we can do it for decades.
And we could, and that's exactly right. So, I'm not saying this to be funny, but I really like it's NFL money without NFL pain. And
100%.
the worst thing that happened to me all day, like literally the absolute worst, is somebody hangs up on me. That's the worst.
So true. I got a buddy, same thing. He's a surgeon, and he repeatedly either, and I don't want to say this way it sounds, but we all understand that humans make mistakes, right? And as a surgeon, you're inside and you find bad things, you make mistakes, and that's not a good day. So yeah, I'm with you, Carl.
I have a bad day. I missed something on the credit report.
Totally,
It's like, and
totally.
it's not. I'm not minimizing it, but I mean, let's be real. It's a remarkable career, and I think we ought to milk every ounce of joy out of it. Like any way we can do better and get more joy, help more people. I think we ought to just milk it for what it's worth. Cause brother, there's a lot of milk in that cow. You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of milk in that cow. Yes, sir. A lot of golden in their hills, right?
Yeah. So comes the question, what do you think holds like what's the thing or top one thing or top five things? What do you think holds people back?
Holds people back. I will answer this, myself, because I know we talked about this, seconds before about, kind of what's the topic for the day. And to hold back, I'll tell you at first, I was going to say something to the effect of time management, right? Like just trying to think the fundamental, like, oh, but Carl, I've never missed a flight. I'm willing to bet, most people have not missed a flight. So you can manage your time. It's just, where is that priority? Where do you put it? And so then the
Mm,
question is, do you have that? I think for me, ultimately, it's what's the 3-year vision for me? And again, this is Mark Pfeiffer speaking, my own thing. And so, Carl, I'd like to hear your take and with all your roundtables you've done, what that is. But the reason why I say that, COVID era for mortgages was really good, right? A lot of financial goals got hit by a lot of folks, myself included, right? So now it's that, I don't know, I don't want to say ego because that doesn't sound good, but the reality is, like, at some point you got to go back to the basics. You got to work harder than what you've worked in a lot of years. You get a little frustrated thinking, I don't want to do this. So it's, I forget that I'm in this business to give people home loans, to talk to the Joes and Jane Smiths, help them with their loans, talk to the realtors, help them grow their business. And I think some of that's just to say, the reason why I say the 3-year vision, I can see myself in 10 years. I kind of have this vision of what I want to be, the vision board, all that stuff. But I think I might lately, the last couple months, that's why you and I got connected, is just trying to skip steps, I think, right? Trying to play
mm,
bigger than where I really am. It's like you can't go from point A to point D without going through B and C first. So
mm,
I think that's my piece is I think it's just finding that accountability, I think, to some degree. Like I know what I need to do. Like Carl, it's what's your green time like? How much time
you
you
know,
spend in prospecting? And I've been tracking that lately, and it's been pretty humbling for the amount of actual prospecting done. So I think for me, it's more just the make the important thing the important, right? We know what we're
mm,
supposed to do, but I think for me, it's just committing to that vision, committing to the goal, and just making sure we execute. I think that's me. So my question to you is, what have you seen? What's been holding back some of those? The 2.3 person, like, what's holding that person back? At some point, a lot of people say he's made it, but I'm he or she. But what's holding the consensus back for what you've seen?
well, first of all, I got three from you just then. So number one, lack of priority, which means given things that don't pay well or that don't bring in business for me, giving them the same priority as the things that do bring in business, or maybe even put them as a higher priority. Things like, is my logo correct? Or, where should I put my desk, the pencil sharpener, left hand, right hand? And while that might sound silly, those are literally some of the things I think that holds people back is a lack of priority. That the second one I heard you say was lack of accountability. And accountability is one of those funny things, man. Um, I was talking with a pretty famous coach, not in our industry, and but everybody would know his name. And he told me something one time that I really took to heart. He said, "Carl, everybody wants accountability until you actually offer it to them, right?" And then that's a whole nother thing, And I thought about that, I'd say that's a fair enough statement, right? Fair enough statement.
True.
And then the third thing I heard you say, which kind of is a little bit of a play on number one, lack of priority. The third thing I heard you say is, which is kind of a famous saying. I believe Brendan Bouchard came up with it. Said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yep.
The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think people confuse what the main thing is in our business. And I'm going to tell you right now, the main thing is marketing. The main thing is you're a marketer of your services that happen to be mortgages. But when people ask me, Carl, what do you do for a living? I'm a marketer. I'm marketing my services. And in my case, I happen to be we loan money, so we market that, and I do training, right, which we market that. And like in your case, Mark, I know you're a branch manager, so you market to loan officers, as part of your main thing, and you market to consumers as part of your main thing. So I think, so I like your list of three, which really mine wouldn't be too much from that. I think there goes that, like, why don't I want to be held accountable? Why do I focus on other things than the main thing? And I think it's a couple things, man. And maybe this is a little deep. Maybe we need to be sitting around the campfire having
Or on a
a
couch
or on a couch, laying down somewhere.
with
Yeah,
a shrink. Yep.
with a shrink. Yeah, I think a lot of it is I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I can't see myself as making 200 or 300 or 800 or 2.4 or like whatever that number is. Like I think a lot of it's worthiness. And then when I'm not worthy, if I don't feel like I'm worthy, then I prioritize on lower producing things like where's the pencil sharpener. I don't want accountability because, I'm not worthy of the greatness. And the main thing is no longer the main thing because I'm not worthy of the things that I bring in. Because we all know that if we simply market our services in the way that we already know how, even if it's flawed, that if we just, that consistency out trumps talent every day of the week.
100%.
And so I think it's a worthiness thing, and because I think that's where call reluctance. Kevin and I, which was mainly Kevin. I just always like to make sure I'm honest about that. So Kevin and I wrote a book on call reluctance, crushing call reluctance, and I think the bottom line is we don't think we're worthy of making that phone call because Mark, if I say, hey man, here's the winning numbers to the lottery on Saturday, and by the way, everybody that wins gets $1 million, whether it's one or 101. They each get $1 million, and here's the number. My suspicion is, Mark, me, you, and anybody listening to this would have zero hesitation calling. If it works for 101, would be calling 100 because one would be for us, right? Would have zero hesitation making those phone calls to 100 people, even if they were strangers, even if it was, and I'm using air quotes here, cold calls. We wouldn't have an issue because we feel like we're bringing something of value. And I think the call reluctance goes away when we realize that thing of value is you and you're worthy. And so anyway, that's maybe a little deep for this, and
No,
maybe I ought to.
I agree with that, and I think there's there's absolute validity. There are folks that would say that let's just pretend somebody has the I am worthy piece. I think for me, I'm almost scared it works. Right. So part of the reason why, what's that call reluctance? If I do that work, if I make those 100 phone calls, it changes where I am right now. And again, whether it's complacency or whatever you want to call it, like I got two kids at home that are in that prime age of, basketball games at 4 o'clock, which is a beating, right? I'm like, who do these parents work? But the reality is you got all this stuff. Like if it works, it means I might have to start doing more. I might have to maybe work the weekends or the nights or doing something to that extent. So I'm like, I think that's part of where I've been. And that just comes into the efficiency then, right? Having the team. And I have a team and I have a wonderful team. But it's like, oh man, do I have to grow that team? Because that's hard. That whole training and going through it. So to some degree, some of that's just the fear of it actually might work, Carl, and it will work, right?
Well,
And maybe
you know
it's
what I
like,
think. So you're kind of a special case, Mark, and I mean this sincerely, in that you've achieved great success, right? You have a great income, great success. You're at the top of the hill on running a mortgage branch that people would be attracted, loan officers would be attracted to. You've had great success with writing the number of loans that you close. So you've made a real good money. And I think part of what holds us back sometimes, what's that guy that talks about you have to know what your why is? Simon something. I can't remember his name now. Simon something. Anyway, there's this guy that has got this YouTube video that's got like 150 billion views where he talks about you have to know what your why. And I think sometimes what holds us back, Mark, is when you've had great success like you have. Not that it's holding you back. I'm just using this as an example.
oh, feel free to go for it. You're probably right.
That when people have great success, you no longer have the oh my God, my mortgage payment's due. Oh my gosh, my car payment's due. Oh my gosh, the kids need shoes.
Fear
And
motivates.
yeah, it can be a serious motivation, for I don't know, decent people, I guess. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but just like, you put others before yourself. Hey, the family needs food. I'm going legal, ethical, moral. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. But once you've achieved this level of success like you have, and the dragons aren't breathing down your butt, so to speak, it gets like, well, I've already got a nice car, I've already got a nice house, the kids are taken care of, I'm saving money, I help a lot of people. Maybe this is like good enough, and you know what? Maybe it is. Like I'm not
No,
saying that as
I
a
don't
bad
want,
thing.
I mean, yes, I agree with you. And I think that's where it is. I think what happened for me personally is, again, COVID allowed us to hit goals pretty quick, right? The business doubled overnight. It was really fun. It's great. You sit back, you no longer can't, right? You weren't able to go see all the relationships, and all of a sudden the phone's just ringing off the hooks and you hit
Yeah.
there. So you hit these, at least I hit these milestones or these goals, or I want to someday do this or have this or that. You've done it, and you kind of get to the point where you look around like, well, geez, now what? Right. So
Yeah.
I agree. It's some of that's the comfort to say, man, do I want to go back out and do that? And I do. And I again, the 10-year vision, I'm there. It's just, okay, what do I do? And am I going in the right path? Am I doing the right things? Because if I keep doing what I did, I'm going to get the same results. Well, that's fine. And that's great. And they've been great results. But the reality is, if I want 2x or 3x results, how do you do that while maintaining the same structure? Because anybody can work twice as hard and get twice the results.
You know what?
Right.
It's funny you say that. A good friend of mine, Dean Jack, was it Dean that did this one? Wait. No, it was Dan Sullivan. Good friend of mine, Dan Sullivan, made a statement to me one time, and probably to 100 people, right? It just made it to me, but this is probably his conversation number 37, kind of thing. And he said that it's much, he said, it's it's easier to 10x than it is to 2x or 3x.
I need to, okay, tell me more. What
All right.
pill do I take?
Yeah, this was interesting.
Hold on, Carl. That doesn't make sense to me. Keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah. Screw the holding back thing. So tell me about this 10x is easier than 2x. Because to 2x, we have to work twice as hard. We have to take twice as many phone calls, twice as many appointments, twice as many applications, twice as many approvals, twice as many denials, twice as many rejections, twice as many insert thing that you want, twice as many insert things that you don't want, right? Including twice as many hours. So now instead of working 40 or 50, now we have to be working 80 or 100. Freaking hard.
Yep.
Right? I've done that in my distant past, working just stupid hours. We're talking like 30 years ago. And I've done that. It's really, really hard. To 10x, you can't work twice as hard. You can't work 10 times harder. You can't do anything 10 times more. You can't work 10 times more hours. There's not that many hours in the day, which means that you have to do things different. So instead of working twice as hard, you have to start working efficiently. You have to start leveraging, because that's the only way you hit to 10x. And so hitting 10x is actually easier. I look at now. So let's say, gosh, it's more than 10x, but let's just say, let's say, hey, I'll give you one. My second year in the mortgage business. So don't quote me on this. This is just off the top of my head to the best of my remember. I think my first year, I made, I think it was 75,000. I think the second year I was like around 200,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And maybe it was 150, but I think it was somewhere around two. I know my fourth year was 700 and what was it? 757, right? Anyway, so let's say second year I'm making 150. Brother, I can tell you right now that when I was making so 10 times when I was making 1.5 million, and that's probably goes back, I'm just guessing 7 years, 8 years ago, it took me to hit to 1.5 and then grow from there. But at the 1.5, I was working far less than at the 150 because I couldn't work 10 times harder to get to 150. So at 150, I'm taking all my applications, I'm chasing my conditions, right? I can't afford anybody, right? So I'm doing it all myself. I'm doing all that stuff. When I'm at 1.5, now I've got some help. And so I got somebody else taking my applications. I got somebody else do I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that's what I did. I had somebody else do my pre-approvals, had somebody else do my follow-up. So like I didn't do any of that stuff. I was really the conductor of the orchestra, not playing any single instrument, just kind of waving baton a little bit. And now since it's gone up from there, I don't even wave the baton. I own the orchestra, right? And I've got somebody. So it's far easier to be at the income I'm at now, which is what I don't know, probably 30 or 40 times. So if I've 40x'd it from my 150,000, but yet I'm working far less hours. I'm taking way more trips. I don't know. I'm a little bit of a monologue there, but
So no. So and at the risk of putting you on the hot seat, on your own podcast, you have me on. But okay, so I'm the conductor of the orchestra. I got a great team that can play the instruments and do all that. If the people showing up in the crowd to come see me, conduct the orchestra are the people that are my relationships, people I've
yeah.
known, right? The realtors, the business partners, the builders, whatever it is. How do you scale that? And maybe the answer is you don't. You start building more of the team to say, okay, help grow the loan officers underneath us and maybe recruiting. That's
Well,
I know we
in your case, it might be. So in my case, it was pretty easy because all I had to do was find somebody a bit more charming than me, which was not hard to do. In your case, where you're such a nice guy, it is a challenge, right? Hey, I got a question for you. So in the early days, that I don't know what I'm doing, fear of rejection, who am I? All that imposter syndrome going on in our heads, right?
totally,
Which
and that
which
still
in our
exists.
early days, hell, maybe it's even true. Maybe it's not imposter syndrome. Maybe we're literally an imposter, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so we're just getting started. Hell, I didn't know what I was doing anyway. How did you for somebody that's listening today, how did you push through that initial fear of I'm a small potatoes and they don't need to talk to me and who am I really don't know that much. How did you push through that and do it anyway?
Yeah, I think that's a relatively easy answer for me, and it's what we talked about earlier. So you and I connected a while back because I was for 6 months without a coach, and so looking back, I feel like coaching over the last 10 years, again, having done this for 20, I feel like coaching's really become more prevalent and predominant in this industry than ever. But I literally, after a year and a half doing the retail, left my wonderful job, great people, small company to go work for
Mm,
somebody that's a big name in the industry. Part of my negotiations was I want to sit outside of your office, right? Just to hear this person say what he said, do what he does, and all that stuff to learn from him. And so it was that to answer the question, it's hang out with people who you want to be, right? That's why you and I
mm,
got connected, Carl. I want to be you when I
mm,
grow up, right? It's one of those things where when somebody's already been there, done that, when they tell you you can do it and you believe them, I think that's the
mm,
big part. So whether it's coaching, accountability, mentorship, I'm not sure what word you want to use, but find somebody that's there to at least help encourage you and show you it's possible. Right. So
mm,
in other words, I had this person, I was like, man, if I could, that's cool. And I didn't want to, be like you don't take that story. I want to be living in Florida and all that other stuff. The reality is, but you capture what I want, right? And that's what this person had. So to see him do his thing, to hear the presentations, to see him in action, I mean, he was a script master, and so
mm,
to be just sitting next to the guy, I wasn't on his team. I went in every once in a while, like the agreement was once a month. He had to at least sit with me for an hour and tell me what I should be doing different. And so I think to that little voice that sits on your shoulder, that little red devil in the cartoons, I think that
mm,
person gets real quiet when somebody else who's
mm,
been there, done that, and is doing it and living it, currently living it. That's the other thing too, is it was somebody doing it, right? It's not somebody that's on stage that tells you should do these things. They haven't done alone forever. It's the reality is he was in the business, he was doing it, making a lot of money. So for me, I think that was the piece that just says it's doable. And it's not just somebody
mm,
that is on the other side of a YouTube channel. It's somebody who's actually there in the office next to me. That was neat to see. So I
mm,
think that's the piece, is find that mentorship, the coaching, the accountability. Like we said, everybody wants it until you give it to them, and then it's not fun, but it's the right thing to do. I tell
mm,
my kids, Carl, it's the in life, and you help me find a where I'm wrong. The decision you don't want to do, the thing you don't want to do, is usually the right decision. Like you want to go to the party, you don't want to stay home and do homework. I don't want to eat my vegetables, I'd rather have cake. I don't want to get up in the morning to work out. Like all the things you don't want to do are the right decision for a better life. So I tell my kids, good life, good decisions. You want a great life, make great decisions.
mm,
And so it's find that person that's been there, done that, and that you admire, you respect, you want to be like when you grow up. And I think that's the piece. And grow up's,
mm,
it's not an age thing. It's just what do you want to be at the next step. So for
mm,
me, it's an easy answer is find that accountability, find the coaching, find the mentorship.
Yeah, I get, what it really goes back to is every action has consequences. And so the consequences of stepping up to the plate, and making things happen is success and all the things that go with it. The house, the cars, the helping of your family, the helping of other families, the helping of your community, right? Making a difference. And the consequences of not taking action is my mortgage is due, my car is due, my kids, I want to do this, or my wife this, or my husband that, and I can't this, or my community needs this, or my little league team needs some money and I want it, but I don't have, and so there's consequences to everything, and it's just, you just pick your consequences, pick your consequence. Hey, Mark, just in closing up on this series we're going to be doing, I'm going to make sure that we give at least one action item because I always believe nothing happens until something happens. And maybe it's something that you've already said. If I'm listening to this today and say, hey, Mark, tell me what's the next thing I should do? Like what's one action item to give me to do this week? And maybe it's something we've already talked about. Maybe it's something totally different. Give me one
No,
thing.
I'm gonna go two things because I think one's action in terms of tactics and do this, and the other is more thought provoking and just write it down and that can be an action. But I need to not figure out. I have that idea of what I want to be in that 3 years. So I want to write down the 3-year vision, exactly like a letter to myself 3 years from now. It says I have these things. Because again, that's my piece is I have the big vision. I need to make sure I got that middle one. But my actions, I've started doing this again since you and I reconnected, but especially this year. So it's a few weeks in the year at the time of this taping. My green time, Carl, I track it every single day. How much time do I spend prospecting, maintaining things like that? It used to be, so just to put this in perspective, call it a year and a half ago, my average for 2022, I averaged 4.33 hours of green time a day. So I actually track every minute. What do I do? And it's also, again, it's very humbling. So right now I'll just be completely open and honest. My team sees this every week. So they're the ones I've got to be embarrassed about is I've spent 2.1 hours a week, or pardon me, a day per day. So it's less than half of what I was doing. And so the business is significantly harder than it is was a year and a half ago. And yet I'm doing less of that green time. So for me, my action item is if you aren't already, track your green time. That's step one. And if you are tracking it, just improve it. At the end of the day, logic would tell you if I double my green time, I'm probably going to double my business.
I have never found that not to be the case. Like that only always works. Like literally always.
Yep.
And I think it's more than that. I think when we double our green time, I think we more than double our outcome because of the snowball effect. Every deal I get as a new listing agent, which is a new opportunity there. So it's like this exponential snowball.
It compounds for sure. I mean, and that's the little thing. Like if you're somebody, if you're tracking your time and you're working 40 hours a week, 40, 45, I promise you, if you put an extra 5 to 10, that's not the same 5 or 10 as the first 5 to 10. Right? That extra 5 or that extra 10 gets you to be that much greater and the team's that much sharper. The business grows. Like teams make mistakes. It's weird. When business slows, teams make more mistakes.
Yeah.
So again, the more business you come in, the sharper they are, the sharper you are. And all of a sudden, like you said, it compounds, you get more referrals. You're on your game. So I agree. That's my action is measure your green time if you're not, and measure what matters. And it's that green time because you can work 40 hours a week, but if you don't do any prospecting, it doesn't matter.
Good stuff, man. Mortgage Mark. So, and you're with which company was CMG?
CMG.
Yeah, heard nothing but great things about those guys. So I applied. They turned me down. Who could blame them? No, I'm just kidding.
Next time, Carl.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Somebody might listen and go, well, what do you mean? No. I've nothing but good things. So, hey, Mark, it's an honor to hang out with you here today, brother, and looking forward to our next episode. And so, good stuff on the holding back. Yeah, just overcome that stuff, and you know what it really comes down to is feel the fear, and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. That's where the magic happens. Mark, love you, brother. You're just an awesome dude. Looking forward to the next episode.
Right back at you, buddy. Appreciate you.
All right, good stuff. Hey, just real quick, if you would like to get a free copy of the Call Reluctance book that I mentioned earlier today, we can absolutely make that happen. And for the life of me, I'm not exactly sure what the URL to send you to is. So let's do this. If you go to freedomclubdemo.com, freedomclubdemo.com, they'll do two things. Number one, when you go there, it'll ask you a couple questions, and then it'll take you to a calendar, and you pick a time and day that works best for you. So number one, they'll help you map out how to close an extra 5 loans per month. And then number two, tell them you want a free copy of the Crushing Call Reluctance book. And my gift to you, they'll get you a copy of that. They'll make it as a PDF, so you can go to the Amazon and buy it, or you can just when you do that, just tell them, and they'll send it to you as a downloadable, so you have instant access to it. So freedomclubdemo.com. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye bye.